was some powerful Dawn. It was cutting grease and making stories.
The dawn of ideas.
It was Dawn soap.
I mean, who says that? You know, I'm this trilogy. I'm washing dishes,
No, it
and then boom.
no, these ideas, creative people, it comes when we're very relaxed, when we're not thinking about anything. And same thing with water. I know every time I take a shower, bang,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. And then,
Yes.
I don't know if you have this problem too, but do you always have to have a paper or pen around? Because things just come at you at the most inopportune times.
Yes.
You know, it's pretty hard to write something when you're taking a shower, and it's just like you got to keep the idea in your head, run out and write it down.
I do. Yep.
You know, because
I have
it just comes
notebooks.
to the craziest times.
I
Now,
have notebooks everywhere.
so the seers, for the fans out there who are new to
Yeah.
they are. Why'd you come up with the name Seer? Why?
I did. It just came to me, and it was. I mean, it's. They can. I'll give the sort of pitch for the story. Order of the Seers is about a group of people who can see the future, and they're enslaved for that ability.
Okay.
And the book's all about how they escape the organization that's trying to exploit their gift, how they reclaim their power and start fighting back. The notion of the word seer literally came to me, like Marcus's name. It just came to me. It was only then that I started realizing that seers is actually an ancient term. I didn't know that at the time when the story, I mean, so many things about the book. Then later I realized, like I was just listening to like a Wayne Dwyer tape, and he was talking about, I'm going to say the name wrong, the Tao, the principles of the Tao. And so many of the things he was talking about are in the book. I had never heard of the Tao before. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know. And it was just crazy, this idea of inherent divinity and of limitlessness once human beings connect with that divinity. I mean, it's something I've always believed because I believe in superpowers. Like I believe we are actual super beings that don't recognize it. And that's why we use our incredible power in such a careless way. Because we don't realize we, with our words, create reality. And we do. And anyway, but so many things. So that word seer, going back and researching the Hebrew history, and then before that, and the idea that seers, there are two different types of seers, and all this kind of stuff that I didn't know at the time when when the story was coming to me. But it's called the title of the book, Order of the Seers, while I was washing the dishes. That just came to me. I knew that's what I turned around to my husband when he came back from the grocery store. I said, I have a science fiction story idea. It's called Order of the Seers.
Was there anything after you wrote like the first or second book you found out about later on and said, shoot, I should have, if I'd known, I would have added that?
Oh yeah, I get these Google alerts about science stuff, and I can't remember what the article was, but yeah, a couple times I've been like, ooh, that would have been really good. But I'm trying to remember.
The fourth book then, out of all that.
Trying to get that fourth.
Come on, the fourth book.
That fourth book.
Now, your trilogy, are you planning to take it further? Like, do you want to do like a graphic novel out of it? Do you want to do an animated series out of it?
I'm open. I'm just getting into graphic novels, and I love them. Before I didn't get it, but then I read this graphic novel called Twisted Dark, and now I'm all on board. It's pretty awesome, and getting some others. I'd love to see it made into either a movie or a TV series, a graphic novel. If I could, I'd have to figure out how to give more. Because with each thing that you do, I don't want, like, for example, if it was a film, I don't want it to be the film made into a movie. I mean, the book made into a movie. I would want to put more into the film. Whatever the next version of this is, has to be more than what's in the book. More insight, more things that I didn't get to put into the book, into whatever comes next for it. So if it's a graphic novel, thinking about how to tell it, the same story in a different way that brings more insight. Because I have amazing fans. And I'm not, it's like I'm not trying to package the same thing in 5 different ways to get your next $5. You know what I mean? Like I want to do a special edition hardcover of the trilogy, because right now it's just in paperback. And it's something I plan to do, but in order to do that, like I wanted to have character profiles that you've never seen before, character illustrations. I want to do maybe, some vignettes that are about, pieces of the story that because of the pacing I didn't include in the book that you would then, but just something special. So I'd love to see it turn into something else.
What has the criticism been as far as the book? Because one of the first things I thought of was Minority Report.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you had any comparisons that you liked or didn't like? Did you think that added to what you were doing or took away, or what's the criticism,
The
if any? Yeah.
the most constructive criticism that I heard of the book was that they wanted more real world references.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of woven into the book, which I thought would have been interesting. But that's not where I was going. But I think that's a valid criticism of the books. It's like, when she talks about, it's 2008, let's look at, what else was going on in that time that would have really made me believe that we were there. And I think that's a good idea. That's not where I was going, but I really liked that criticism. Mm-hmm. I've heard when people say it reminds me of, I've heard Minority Report, I've heard X-Men, and if somebody's like, well, what is it like? I would say, yeah, it's like Minority Report meets X-Men in a way. But I don't like, that's a compliment. I love Minority Report and I enjoy X-Men.
That'd be a good way to sell it to a Hollywood like that.
Yeah.
That's the way they understand things.
Yeah, exactly. No? So when I was starting out, comparison made me feel like I was not original, like I stole somebody's idea, and but now I realize, comparison is just how people frame something.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's nothing unique. There are a lot of things that have nothing to do with Minority Report or X-Men in my book. But if you're looking for a way to figure out how you might relate to this or whether or not you might enjoy it, the comparison helps. Other criticisms. The biggest criticisms that I received were from the fan fiction community that didn't want me to publish it.
Oh, wow.
Is it a self-published book or?
Yes. Oh. My book is self-published. When I wrote Order of the Seers, I'd never written anything that was an original idea of mine. I'd never written a novel, and I'm a huge fan fiction fan from the X-Files days. Mm. X-Files, some of the best science fiction I've ever read was X-Files fan fiction. So when I finished writing the book, the idea that I would just publish it without having it vetted by people was just absurd, right? Because everybody thinks their book's good. Mm-hmm. And we all know that's not true for everybody. So I wanted a way to share it and see whether or not it made sense to anybody but me. And because I was a part of the fan fiction community, I posted it as a fan fiction piece. But it's funny, the minute I posted the first chapter, I got people writing me, this is not fan fiction. Did you steal this book? And I was like, no, I swear I wrote it. They're like, because this is not like anything else. No, but what they were saying was, I can tell already that this is original work. So is this your original work or is this somebody else's? Which, I wasn't offended by that. So anyway, I posted it. I got fantastic feedback from it. People got it. People liked the story. And at that point, I thought, okay, well, maybe I have something worth publishing. When I made the decision to pull it, then there was all this, oh, well, you're, because it was a fan fiction piece, you can't do that, and this, that, and the other. And these were all people who hadn't read, didn't know that I wrote the story out completely first, that it was an original. The people who read the story, actually, I got very little, because they were like, well, duh, yeah, we didn't know why you were posting this sucker up anyway. But the people who had a theoretical, debate about it without having read my stuff. No, and there are all kinds of people like that. Mm-hmm. They're a small but vocal group. Mm-hmm. And when I first decided to publish, those people said some pretty awful things about me and my story without having read it. And that was fantastic. It was awful, but see, you got to get a thick skin if you're going to do anything that you care about and put yourself out there. And I remember I got on Twitter but I didn't really know. I'm not so tech savvy as you guys saw with me setting up this Skype, and like someone had said, called me a thief on Twitter and said that I had stolen. Now, this is someone who had not read this story, but
Wow.
because they posted it as fanfic, that, I cried. I cried and I was so heartbroken. But that was so good for me because you have to decide as an artist, and this is not just writing, this is anything, a human being in the world, what you believe. And are you going to go with that, or are you going to let the crowd, which may just be 2 or 3 really loud suckers, you know what I mean, take you off your path? And it was through that criticism and that sort of, it was just really awful, that I decided who I was as a writer and an author and what I was going to do despite all that. And so that was probably my worst criticism, which wasn't about the story at all, but about me in this theoretical debate. But it was great because it helped me. All the criticism, any criticism I got after that, I put in the construct. How can I use this? If I can't use this, then I don't take it in. So like, I really like the whole, you should have put more real world references, because I thought that was constructive criticism. It's not where I was going with the book, but I could see what that person was saying.
Right.
So.
But would have it added anything to the story?
Not the story I was telling.
So that's it matter.
But as a writer, you know
matter.
this.
Yeah.
Reading is so subjective, right? I just finished reading The Alchemist. And it's interesting. People are like, "Oh my gosh!" Like a whole religion has kind of bubbled up around this book. And I read it and I liked it. It was inspiring. But, I go back to Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. That book was my earth-shattering kind of moment. Now, that's just totally subjective. Millions, tens of millions of people think that, I clearly need to go back and read that book again. But that was my experience. So I'm not trying to battle with you about what your feelings are about my book. At the end of the day, maybe my reaction to, The Alchemist could be where I was at the time, what else I was reading. Maybe if you've never read The Prophet, then The Alchemist blows your mind. If you have read The Prophet, then maybe not so much. You can't get into that, right? Right. You have your experience, whatever your experience is. If you love it or you hate my book, that's your experience. That's valid. I'm not trying to convince you. My job as a writer is to do what I see in my head. That's what I try to write. And my first measure of success is whether or not when I read it back, I see the original image in my head. If I read it back and I don't, then I know I messed up. I didn't get it right. When I read it back, I get brought back to that moment in the shower where I first saw the scene and I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly how it was in my head. And I know I got it right. And that's it. Now, whether you like it or not is, I hope you do. But at that moment, that's right.
Now, how do people contact you to see if you did it right?
Oh gosh, you can go to my website, www.CereceRennieMurphy. That's CERECEMUR. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the middle. CERECERENNIEMURPHY.com.
Cool. So pretty much is
email
your
me
name.com.
from my website, CereceRennieMurphy.com. Yep, that's it.
And that's where they can order your books.
Yeah, they can order my books. You can also get them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you're looking at ebooks, right now I'm exclusively on Kindle. Yeah.
Awesome t-shirts.
Order the Sears. Woo!
You gotta go on and get the merchandise. It's awesome.
Oh, there you go.
Because I know you're
That's
gonna
where
keep that moving.
Yeah, I like it. I like to give away stuff. So
yeah, I still gotta get that other one though. We spoke about.
Oh,
the awesome one in my size, but that's another story.
That's right. That's right.
So, but yeah, definitely check that out. Support. The only way that, because you're an independent artist, you're self-published.
Yeah, I am.
The only way that we can do those type of things, whether it's music, writing, comic books, you gotta support our stuff. You gotta buy it.
Absolutely.
So please, please, please do that.